Whoa, what the? Hello, everybody. We are live. What's going on? I am Adam. This is Highly Articulated. And today we are going to be talking about toys and tabletop role-playing games. As the thumbnail suggested. So good to have you guys here. Good to be here. Happy to kind of wind down the weekend, Sunday afternoon, talking about fun stuff. So let's get into it, shall we? Let me just quickly say hello to the chat, which is already quite busy. JMac77 is here. Katie's Toys. Nolan is here as well. Larry's Geeky World. Josh Brown Toys. Mr. Ryan Clark. And so on and so forth. Peter Kleins, good to have you here, buddy. Got here just in time. Gabrielle is here. I think that's everybody that's in the chat so far, besides John. Hello to everybody. Let's get right into it. Not a crazy busy week, or at least it didn't feel that way for toys. At least for me, again, my perspective is, of course, the toys that I care about. I mean, there's lots of stuff going on. We didn't gather here to talk about Toy Fair, just because we had a monkey business, and then last week I just realized that last weekend I didn't even do a video as a result of I wasn't in town. I was at a was out of town at a diving competition for my 10-year-old, so no video last week. But maybe I don't know if I'm more particular about what I'm buying, or whether it's sort of a reflection of the fact that I'm kind of buying less stuff. Like, I have lots of stuff on pre-order, but there's a lot of toy announcements that sort of come and go, and I'm not that fussed. I'm just not that excited. But there's always a couple of things, and I think this week the Four Horsemen's Mythic Legion's tabletop role-playing game for me is without a doubt sort of the most significant thing. So we will get to that, but first, a couple other little pieces of news, a couple little orders, things like that. And I just realized there was one more thing that is relevant to me. There it is. Yeah, okay, so I'll bring that up when I get there. For now, first things first, let's talk about this. SH Figure Arts is re-releasing a whole bunch of Dragon Ball Z figures. Now, they're doing the Majin Buu Super Buu, the First Form Cell, and Super Saiyan Son Goku, the Games Begin figure. So Games Begin meaning the Cell Games version, and all great figures, all re-releases. SH Figure Arts felt like they were going at an incredible clip up until the last, I don't know, 6 months or a year. It seemed like there was a new release, 2-3 new releases for Dragon Ball coming out like crazy, and it seems like it's just sort of stopped. They've got releases, multiple releases of Goku, but not much else, and it's been a little bit of a weird time if you're a Dragon Ball Z SH Figure Arts collector. With the excitement of some of the stuff that's come over the last couple of years, for whatever reason, it feels like there's not the same momentum right now as there was. At least, again, for me, that's sort of a personal perspective type thing. With all these re-releases, like Boo has been out and been re-released. I think this might even be like the third time it's been released. First Form Cell, again, like I think this might be the third time we've gotten it. The Games Begin version of Goku. I think this is a re-release, but it's also kind of like not an old figure. I think it's the newest version of Goku, or the newest sort of version of the articulation. Version 4, I think they call it. It might not be though. I as an SH figure art collector of Dragon Ball stuff, I don't actually pay that close attention to some of that stuff. If I have the Super Saiyan version of Goku, I'm good. I couldn't tell you which version I have. I don't know if it's this version or if it's a different version, because the yellow-haired Goku is a yellow-haired Goku to me. I don't get too hung up about proportions or oh, that's the uniform from, this season or this era or whatever. So, for these ones, I'm kind of good. That first form cell is cool. It has some issues, and it still has the same issues that it had before. I'm still waiting for a little bit of a redesign for Cell, from an SH Figure Arts perspective. But this re-release sort of indicates that we might not be getting that, terribly soon. Yeah, it's weird to just see the same pictures and sort of the same marketing for these figures again. Like, I don't know. It's a little bit weird. And the fact that they've got this picture, so Boo got reissued, but what they're actually showing you with this picture is that this alternate head actually comes with Super Boo as an accessory. So yeah, just weird. And they're not re-releasing this guy to the best of my knowledge. I might pick him up, but yeah, just a weird time for Dragon Ball. A couple of the newer releases have been related to a mobile game, and a couple of releases from Daima. There was a P Bandai release of a movie only character, which gives me hope that Tapion might be coming at some point. My favorite sort of not quite canon Dragon Ball character, but who knows? We shall see. In other news, now this is Toy Arc. I'm pulling this from Toy Arc. I didn't take the time to do slides today because there wasn't as much stuff that I needed to talk about. So I'm just basically sharing another website's pictures and information and all that kind of stuff. Toy Arc also reported on the Sesame Street NECA Super Grover figure that was revealed at Toy Fair. This looks like a lot of fun. I'm not doing the NECA Sesame Street stuff, but I'm pretty excited that they're doing Super Grover. Not that I'm gonna get it, but I know that a lot of people were kind of asking about getting a Grover, and whether or not they thought Super Grover would sort of make the cut. It seems to me, although I'm not 100% certain, but it seems to me that you could probably remove the Super Grover aspects of this figure and just have Grover, because it looks like that helmet is a removable piece, and it looks like the cape is a removable piece. And so, why couldn't you have just a normal Grover if you wanted to? So I think I think it's a really, really cool release. I like as well that when you get this skinny with the arms, they were smart enough to just make them bendy arms. I think there's no articulation because you don't need it. It's just a bendy arm. But the fact that they have a bendy arm with articulation at the wrist is quite interesting. I'm actually really curious to see how this figure is executed and what it's like, when it gets released. But as I said, not necessarily something that I need, but something that is super, super fun. Spaded One McDysentery said, "Are these bendy arms on Grover?" Yes, they are, which looks very, very cool. Like I said, it's going to be it's interesting. I'd never heard of anybody kind of doing it where you have articulation kind of connected in this way. So I'm genuinely curious how this is going to work out. But it looks cool. Mr. Ryan Clark says I absolutely need Super Grover. Yeah, if space and money weren't options or weren't issues, concerns, I'd probably do the Sesame Street stuff, and I would probably do the Muppet stuff as well. But they don't quite satisfy, they don't quite make the threshold of things that I will be adding to my collection. So. Spaded One McDysentery said Boo looks really cool, but I don't know jack about Dragon Ball Z. And that's fair. I mean, that's everybody's interests, all that, everybody's sort of reference points are going to be different. So Dragon Ball Z was something that was huge in my life growing up, and hence why I have 2 shelves of Dragon Ball figures. Brian Brink, good to have you, buddy. Brian Brink says, I feel like Figure Arts line generally has gone schizo. There's no clear commitment to the core brands that made them great. The hard thing for any line, I think, is kind of maintaining the momentum, maintaining the excitement that you have over a number of years, and sort of sustaining that. And I mean, when you look at Dragon Ball, just specifically Dragon Ball for SH Figure Arts, when you look at Dragon Ball as a property, you really have kind of like Goku, to a lesser extent, like Vegeta, to an even lesser extent, you like Trunks, Gohan, Piccolo. You don't have a really wide cast of characters that really have strong demand. So the fact that they've gone 10 years plus doing SH Figure Arts Dragon Ball stuff is impressive. I mean, they're I don't know, they're a couple hundred figures in or something like that, which is I think really, really impressive. But I do think to some extent you start running out of well-known established characters. But then you get sort of injections of energy with something like the Dragon Ball Super movie. Daima gave them a handful of figures to make. But now that they're sort of looking at, and they've done them before, but when they look at kind of the movies, the standalone movies that very often have 1 or 2 unique characters in each movie, I think there's a market for a lot of those characters. Every one of those movies is someone's favorite Dragon Ball movie. Like I said, I would buy a Tapion figure in a heartbeat. The android that they released, not for me. So it's, you get diminishing returns the deeper you go into some of those properties, I think. So let's see. Mr. Ryan Clark says that there was a regular Grover announced at San Diego Comic-Con with the Muppet that he annoys as a waiter. That's an interesting pack-in. Yeah. Larry's Geeky World says the only SHF I got are Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and a Power Rangers Super Samurai set, and I'm selling the Power Rangers Super Samurai set. Yeah, that's fair. Super Grover is tempting, but I'm saving myself for Gonzo. I hope Gonzo is a 2-pack with Rizzo. Gonzo and Rizzo, yeah. I mean, a lot of people kind of lean one way or the other, right? A lot of people lean Sesame Street or lean Muppets. They should cross over, but I feel like people kind of pick one or the other as their main puppet Muppet thing. Spaded One said my main experience with DBZ is video games, so almost all positive. Only anime I really watch is Baki. That's fair. Very, very fair. Nolan says Gonzo and Grover probably be the only ones that I get. Yeah, that's fair. If they did Muppet Babies, I'd get a bunch of those. Yeah, I think I think we all had those Muppet Babies Happy Meal toys, and that left us all wanting more Muppet Babies toys. I think we had Muppet Babies toys when we were younger. All of us, everybody had those, right? And then I think it's like there's a nostalgia for Muppet Babies toys as a result of McDonald's having that little toy line. Um, anyway, um, Brian Brink says, I guess I was referring more to Star Wars and Marvel. Figure Arts basically quit after Endgame and only made Mando from that series. That's a good point. Um, Star Wars seems to be getting re-release stuff. Marvel seems to get re-release stuff. I don't know if maybe it's a licensing thing, maybe just because Bandai being a Japanese company and SH Figure Arts being released kind of first in Japan and then sort of global. They have their global what do they call it? Like global immediate release or whatever, where everywhere in the world gets it on the same day. Um but I feel like maybe they lean more towards the Japanese IPs. Um, and I always think it's funny because SH Figure Arts does releases that are kind of like out there, like weird. Like they've done a couple Japanese musicians, a couple Japanese comedians, things like that. And I see collectors go like, nobody wants this. Like, why would you make this? Why wouldn't you make whatever Star Wars figure or whatever Marvel figure or whatever instead of this? And it's like, okay, well, I think maybe they know their market better than you do as the collector who specifically wants something like. So I always think that's quite funny. And I actually think that SH Figure Arts has some really, really cool releases, of actual people as action figures. I think it's kind of a unique take. And I don't pick any of them up, but there's been several that I've wanted to pick up. Um, you know, if space and money weren't problems. Um, Mr. Ryan Clark says, I lean more Muppets, but I'm down for all the toys from both. I missed out on the Palisades Muppets back in the day. Yeah. And I think a lot of people that sort of missed out on those or sort of have slowly been collecting them after the fact are kind of looking at some of these and thinking, like, well, I should probably get them sooner rather than later. Spaded one McDysentery, don't pretend for 1 second that Muppet Babies aren't already in the works. Nobody milks nostalgia quite like NECA toys. Yeah, you're probably right. Red 5 is here. He says, I need that guy. Yeah, Super Grover. This one's, like I said, this one kind of piqued my interest. Mostly because of the bendy arms with the articulated hands on the ends. Like it's just kind of cool. So Josh Brown is saying the quiet parts. He says they're all Muppets. That's true. Spaded one McDysentery says Figure Arts does random stuff. They did a Yuto Horigome. He came with a board and papercraft stairs with rail. Yeah, and that's cool. That dude's a hero in Japan and an icon. And I think for fans of his, that's awesome. Like imagine, I don't think that's being sold to toy collectors as much as it's being sold to fans of Yuto, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't know their market. They know it better than I do. Gabrielle said Star Wars Muppet Babies would be a dream line for me. That was the first time I learned what Star Wars was. That would be a wild line. That would be interesting to see that for sure. Man, that would, yeah. Oh man, that's a pretty deep cut, but I would love to see that. You know who Yuto is? Yeah, I know who Yuto. Didn't he win the Olympics or something like that? Like he's a superstar for Japanese people. No wonder he gets a toy. That's the same with the comedians, and that's the same with the musicians. Like I think they did. I can't remember who they've done. I think the most recent one they did was Hide. and Hide is like a massive, massive music, star of music and sort of popular culture in Japan. And I know this, and I know of those comedians because I have an affinity for Japanese things, and um, so yeah, that's why I know who Yuto is as well. But anyway, let's move on from I actually did these in sort of chronological order of when they were in the news. So we're going back to SH Figure Arts with Star Wars. Which when Brian was talking about Star Wars SH Figure Arts, I was like, yeah, I mean, there they are. This looks really good. This figure looks phenomenal, obviously inspired by the fact that the Mandalorian and Grogu film is coming out in May, and an update to the previous version of the SH Figure Arts figure. This looks phenomenal. The hard surfaces look great, sculpted well, painted well. The soft goods look great too. Grogu looks fantastic. I don't know if I'm gonna get this one or not, but I'm leaning towards it. I might wait till after the movie. I don't need this, tomorrow. I don't need this right away, but I think this looks really, really good, and I think it's executed really, really well. Love the little pram. Love the harness. The Grogu's shoulder bag with his sigil on it. I can't wait. I hope there's a scene where he gets that, and I hope just his little eyes light up when he gets to look like his daddy. I don't know whether that's going to be a scene or not, but anyway, I think this one looks good. But again, with SH Figure Arts is kind of weird and a little bit frustrating because, like Brian Brink said, we only get Mandalorian, and then you're sort of like, okay, well, what do I do with this? And I think to some extent, what happens with a lot of the SH Figure Arts stuff, or at least my opinion on this, is just like Yuto, SH Figure Arts is kind of looking at these almost like display pieces, almost like collectible one-off things that you're going to put in your house as a decoration, you know? I don't know that they're necessarily approaching it the way that I do as a collector, where like, well, if I get the Mandalorian, then I want, somebody for him to like battle against, or you know what I mean? I want sort of more interaction. I want to be able to sort of set up a scene and all that kind of stuff. I don't know that they kind of approach it that way, which is unfortunate, but you know, that's just kind of the way it is, I guess. Um Spaded One McDysentery said, patiently waiting for a soft goods Star Wars line. That Grogu looks basically perfect though. Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. I love soft goods. I am, very much in the camp of soft goods work. I know of collectors that don't like soft goods because they want their toys to be molded and shaped, and they want them to be plastic effectively. I myself appreciate, both sides of that. There's plastic capes that are molded really badly, and there's plastic capes that are molded really well. I think sometimes fabrics are difficult to sculpt, but then again, at a small scale, at a 6-inch scale, I think sometimes certain things that are done in fabrics in a one-to-one sort of human scale fall a little bit short at like a 1/12 scale, and so sometimes you can't match a texture, you can't match a shape or a silhouette or anything like that. So I kind of go both ways. I would love to see what a soft good Star Wars line would look like a Mezco type line for Star Wars could be really, really interesting. Um, I'm just thinking of I'm thinking of this figure. Like if this figure was done with soft goods, it it would be I don't know if this could be done with soft goods because it would you'd have pants and then armor would have to be overlaid on top of that. It does have a soft goods cape already, so I'm sort of like, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see it. I'd have to see it to sort of know whether I prefer it because, like I said, I think sometimes plastic can look really, really good as a stand-in for fabric at this scale. So yeah, I'd have to see it. I'd want to see it. I do want to see it. I love seeing when SH does soft goods, over hard plastic as well, and they seem to be doing more of that recently. They seem to be sort of experimenting a little bit with that. I think some of their Star Wars stuff has some interesting soft goods. They haven't gone, full Mezco or anything like that, but you do see people custom build these types of things, and they do look fantastic. My issue is that, like, I think certain things, and this is not a knock against Mego. Mego has been around forever, and they make really cool stuff, and their look is unique, and it has its place. But I feel like something like the Mandalorian, if you did it with full soft goods suit underneath the armor, it might veer more towards Mego, and then I don't know how much I would love it. So anyway, everybody's different. Everybody's got different preferences. Some people look at those Mego figures and absolutely love them. I look at them and I think the proportions are weird and just they look off, and they look like toys. They look, and like I said, they look great for what they are, but they're just not quite what I'm looking for. But this guy looks great. I have the SH. Where is it? I have the SH May Show movie realization Mandalorian. Yojimbo Mandalorian, which is fantastic. I'm trying to think if there's soft goods on that. There isn't. There's the soft goods cape, but the fabric is done, in plastic, and it looks really, really good. So I still want to get the movie realization Remnant Stormtrooper because again, I feel like I need a what's the word I'm looking for? I need a yin to the Mandalorian's yang. I need a foil. That's the word that I'm trying to think of. I need a foil for the good guy. I need a bad guy to go with the good guy. But I don't know if I'm using that word correctly. I feel like I am, but I feel like it's not the right word. But anyway. Spaded Woman Dysentery says, I just prefer soft goods personally. I'm more pose and display than play. Figure Arts and Mafex knock these figures out of the park for what they are. It's a me thing. That's fair. That's fair. Like I said, everybody has their different preferences. Nolan says, I don't mind Mego figures. They're kind of delicate though. Yes, and that's the other thing is that they're not a rough and tumble toy. And they look it, to be honest. They look a little delicate. But yeah, this SH Figure Arts Mandalorian looks great. I personally am very, very excited for the movie. Between now and when the movie comes out, my 10-year-old and I are rewatching all of the 3 seasons of Mandalorian. We're gonna rewatch Book of Boba Fett. We're gonna rewatch Skeleton Crew as well, because why not? We're gonna go to Disneyland. When I do WonderCon, my family is gonna come along. We're gonna do Disneyland, and so we're gonna do Galaxy's Edge, which I love. And I'll come back from that and just absolutely gush about Disneyland again. I love Disneyland. But anyway, Mandalorian looks great. Another release this week, in related to soft goods news, Mezco revealed and released the Agent Gomez Back the F Up remix. So this is, of course, a recolor re-release of the Agent Gomez 1975 which came out like a year ago, not even a year ago. I'm kind of new to Mezco. I don't really understand their business model. I don't really understand how a figure that comes out gets re-released within the same year, and then a figure that came out 3 or 4 years ago just doesn't get a re-release. It seems to me that that's a weird way to do it. I would stagger them, and if you're gonna re-release kind of every figure just in different colors, give it time. I genuinely don't understand why they do this. Now, I'm not upset about it. I don't buy everything that they put out. I passed on this. I got my Gomez. I got my Street Gomez. I, have a, there's at least one other Gomez that I would like to pick up. And ultimately, when this gets released, when this gets sort of revealed, I kind of say to myself, okay, well, do I want this one more than the other one that's already on my list? And if the answer is no, then it's a pretty easy pass for me. Now this looks pretty cool. I mean, the Agent Gomez 1975 is a niche choice for sure. Mezco's funny because they kind of jump aesthetically between different decades without really caring. They don't seem to like have any problem mixing and matching different decades, different eras. So long as they're within about 50, 60 years kind of thing. It feels like there's like 1950s gangsters, 1975, Agent Gomez, modern day figures, and they all just kind of live in the same world. They sort of cohabitate as though time doesn't matter in the Mezco universe, which I think is cool. I'm okay with it. I think the gangsters play well with whatever you want. Um, all the Rumble Society stuff to me, it is just like this fun hodgepodge of like, oh, we had an idea of a figure that we want to do that's our original IP, and we want to just sort of throw it in, and so it's Rumble Society, and that in some way, I guess, makes it one universe. But within the universe, there's time travel, and there's universe jumping and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like you can do whatever you want, which is great. So Nolan says that's a great looking Gomez. If I had the funds, would have got him. That's fair. He looks great. And again, if money and space weren't issues, I probably would have got him too. I actually preferred this one to the first release. The first release, of course, was a black turtleneck, black coat, black pants. Just kind of a blacked out 1975 Agent Gomez. I prefer this one. White turtleneck, red coat, brown pants. But everybody's preferences are going to be different. So, Spaded One McDysentery says Mezco is definitely ramping up the repaints in recent times. I think it might be, as their business grows, as their fan base grows, it's pretty easy to just sort of like make two of something, back to back. Really maximize the use of your molds, your use of your patterns for the soft goods and stuff like that. They do a really good job of reuse on accessories and things like that. But there's also sort of that issue of diminishing returns, where if people bought Agent Gomez 1975 less than a year ago, basically, are they necessarily in the market for this? I don't know. Although this is sold out and you could be added to the wait list, but it's sold out. So I mean, they're doing something right. This is again that same thing as like SH Figure Arts releasing Yuto. It's Mezco knows their clients. They know what their customers want. All the Rumble Society stuff sells out quite quickly. For the most part, you get some stuff that I think maybe they make more of. So you get some of the army builders and stuff like that, where sometimes available a little bit longer. But for the most part, the named characters of Rumble Society get snatched up pretty quick. Nolan says the two I wish I wouldn't have missed are Roach and Grub and the Worker Gomez. Yes, both very, very cool. Roach and Grub is a very, very cool figure. The fact that, well, I guess you've got the Gold Skull Ninja that you could sort of have as his foil, you know, in the same way that Mandalorian needs a stormtrooper. But you know, yeah, it's a very, very cool release. It does have elements that I don't love. That Worker Gomez is very, very cool though. It's very unique and just kind of a fun little offering. Mr. Ryan Clark said Mezco is really great at creating the demand for their product. Yes. I honestly just wish I wish that when they reveal a figure on like a Thursday, it didn't go up on a Friday for pre-order. Like I wish you had a little bit more time to sort of mentally prepare for their drops, but what are you gonna do? Spaded One McDysentery says, I like the colors on this more than the original, but I already have the original. Yeah. They're both basically just Shaft cosplay. Yes, exactly. This is definitely 1970s. So this is, you know, Agent Gomez 1975, but then you get like Street Gomez. Street Gomez is like modern. You get Atticus Doom and Bartholomew Vex that are like Victorian era kind of looking, but they're but then they're, you know, lore wise they're like in the 50s kind of, but they never sort of mention a date. There's definitely kind of a 70s vibe to a lot of Mezco stuff though. I think the gangsters, even though they kind of look like, you know, 1930s gangsters, could just as soon be the 50s or the 70s. But like I said, it's kind of just a mishmash of all that stuff. So Red 5 says, I just don't see the appeal to Mezco. I think what makes it worse is the guy running the business is horrible customer service. I don't want to support someone like that. That is totally fair. I have, in my very, very limited experience, not had any issues. But I've heard I've heard nothing but terrible things about folks not getting stuff or having issues that just never get resolved. But Spaded One says, I will say the accessory spread on this guy is amazing. Rifles, sniper rifles, shoulder holsters, wire jackets, pigeons, spy watch with effects. Yes, you're absolutely right. Very, very cool accessories. And Spaded One replying to Red 5 says, I didn't get it either till I had a bunch of expendable income and took a chance. I've never had to deal with their customer service directly, but I understand it can be a nightmare. Yeah, that's sort of the situation that I've experienced too, where I've not had to deal with them, but I have heard I have not heard anybody have good experiences when they've needed to deal with an issue regarding, you know, one of their figures, whether they didn't get it, whether it went to the wrong address, whether they had a QC issue or something like that. There's not been a lot of positive sort of coming out of, you know, those interactions, but I don't, yeah, it's weird because that's to me, as somebody that does that, as somebody that has as a job customer service for a toy company, I genuinely don't understand why they're so bad at their customer service. Like I genuinely can't wrap my head around some of the stories that I hear. Um because I just think that most of it would be such easy fixes. And, you know, I hear about like just lack of communication. Um, you know, I don't know. Maybe there's information that I don't know that leads to that, but it seems unfortunate. So, Gady's Toy says him and Tangerine would make for incredible picks. Absolutely. That Tangerine figure is very, very cool. Again, not on my list because I can't collect all the things. So Josh Brown says it's not just customer service though, it's the zero communication for things like the 89 Batman. Yes, which I think I mean, I do think that that's customer service though too. I think that that 1989 Batman, the delays and delays and delays without any communication of any sort as to why it was delayed, relates to customer service or sort of forward facing transparency about products that you have people's money for. So I don't get it. People aren't going to like that things get delayed, but at least they know that things got delayed. And maybe you can tell them why. Maybe you can't tell them why. My guess is in development, that thing just didn't work out the way they thought it would. Um, so tell people that, you know, it's not that it's not that difficult um to sort of put out a statement that says, hey, you know, when we were testing this, we found X, Y, and Z that wasn't acceptable, and so, you know, we're sort of reworking or retooling something. It's not that complicated, right? Like I said, people aren't going to like it, but uh, people didn't like hearing nothing either. So it's like, what's the difference, really? I guess my thought is like you're gonna appease more people by sharing the bad news than by just not saying anything. You're just gonna upset everybody. Um, but anyway, Josh says, yeah, it was years and they just refused to address it, which is just weird to me as somebody that deals with delays in making toys. You know, just tell people. Just tell people why they don't have their toy in their hand. Gady's Toys said, my first Mezco will be the 112 Samurai Jack, and I've just given up waiting. He'll ship when he ships. Yeah, I think was that one of the ones that's like been charged? Like people are now sort of expecting that to ship pretty soon. I don't know. Trevor 16 shooter says, I'm surprised Mezco is still pretty faceless. Paige and D are great ambassadors, but I don't know that they can speak with the authority of true spokespeople. The company itself is pretty silent. Yeah. Um yes. Um which I mean, I guess it's just by design, right? Like that's the choice that they've made. That's what they've decided they're gonna do. I mean, can you imagine though? Like the anybody that has Mezco figures and you know appreciates Mezco figures, can you imagine how much more they would appreciate them if the customer service was good? Can you imagine if like they were a company that like engaged with, you know, their customer service? You know, they came out and said, "Look, we made a mistake. We did this. We're fixing it. We want to be better. We want to." You'd like double your fan base. Maybe they don't want to. I don't know. I don't know because there's nobody out there. You know, like Trev said, there's no face to the company really. So, um, yeah, and there was a Godzilla thing that took forever too. And Brian Brink says, and then after all that, the 89 bats wasn't all that great. Yeah, there was I think the suit splits, right? Isn't that the big thing? Like the kind of like foam rubber suit does not hold up. I don't know. I didn't get that one. I have no interest in getting it. So 16 shooter says they should let Paige be more of an authority spokesperson for them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You probably know better than I do. I mean, I think you're probably closer to those guys um, than just about anybody that I know. But then again, I might be making an assumption. Maybe you're as close as anybody can be, but that's the way they are. So, yeah, and Spaded One Dysentery said Samurai Jack is shipping right now. Folks just started getting him. Yeah, so there you go. Katie's Toys, you might get your figure sooner rather than later. Or you might not. You might be waiting a year and a half to get it. Josh Brown Toy says we are generally pretty accepting of delays if we just get told. Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Like if you're if you say, hey, we're still working on it, there's going to be people that are going to be disappointed, obviously, and rightfully so. People want to get the stuff that they're paid for, put their deposit down for, or what have you. But not knowing is what frustrates people. So Josh Brown says, I don't know their situation, but they would have to pay them with more than toys at that point, and they should be anyway if they aren't already. Yeah, I would agree with that in reference to like Paige doing as much as he does, and for all intents and purposes, for me as somebody that's sort of gotten into Mezco and just kind of dipped my toe, really, I'm not all in by any stretch. Paige is like the only sort of source of any news. Like sometimes it feels like Mezco doesn't share news, it's coming from Paige. And then you get like D Amazing. When we're saying D Amazing does like reviews and does videos for them and stuff like that. But he doesn't work for them, so like, yeah, it's weird. Mafix is wildly more delayed, but they do generally pretend that this month's releases will be next month, maybe. I love how Spiro is so open about the delays. It makes life easier when everybody knows what's going on. That's my personal opinion. So Brian Brink says 89 bats, hard to attach the cape, and it didn't look great. Posing was clumsy. I waited 3 years, fiddled with it for 20 minutes, then put it back in the box, and later sold it at a toy show. Yeah. Peter Klein says, I used to run social media for a magazine, and people who complained there were always so grateful just to hear, hey, that's not my department, but let me pass it on and try to get an answer for you. Yeah. Yeah, I think Mezco is very small, so I think maybe they just don't have a person that can answer those questions. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's a situation where they just need to hire somebody to answer their customer service emails, who can sort of take the pressure, who can sort of take the heat from frustrated, anxious customers that just really want to get their stuff in hand. I don't know. Anyway, enough about that. Let's move on to something that's more positive, at least for now. Am I logged in? Yeah, I'm logged in. I should log out. Whatever. It's too late now. I'm a backer. I pledged for a minimal amount of things for reasons, which I'll share, so it doesn't really matter. Mythic Legions, the role-playing game Kickstarter campaign, is live right now. Their funding goal of $90,000 was absolutely crushed in the image here says funded in 5 minutes. It was, I think, less than that. I think it was like 4 minutes. I logged in at 8 a.m. my local time when the campaign launched, and when I got to the landing page, like when my browser loaded up, they were already at $20,000 or something like that, and this was at 8 o'clock. By the time I went through, they were at like $27,000 or something like that. So this thing is absolutely crushing it. So their goal was $90,000. Obviously, that wasn't their goal. Obviously, their goal is $5 million. They want as much as they can get. But spoiler alert, that's true of every Kickstarter. Okay, anybody that sort of thinks that I'm being critical of people trying to make money, you're wrong. Everybody that has a Kickstarter is trying to make money, and should be unapologetic about it. But yeah, their funding goal was $90,000. They crushed that in under 5 minutes. They're currently sitting at $715,000, which is not, not too bad. But I'm very, very excited about this one. I think the offering is super strong. The pricing is very, very good. I think this thing, they're at 715,000 now. I think this will be probably close to 2 million when it's done. That's my personal prediction. I think I think it's still creeping up a little bit. It's flattened out a little bit, but I think, I think it will probably have a little bit more in the back end than it had in the front end, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I think I think the Mythic Legion's crowd will go back in there and add more stuff. Like, the people that already have backed will go in and add more stuff. That seems to be how they do their pre-orders that I've experienced, at least in like the Cabal. And then I think on the back end, all those late Kickstarter pledge people that wait till the last minute to sort of see what they're getting, will have a pretty significant bump. I think, like I said, I think the back end, the last 3 days, has a very good chance of being stronger than the first 3 days. So the first 3 days and the last 3 days are really, 90% of what you're going to earn through a Kickstarter. So I have no doubt that this will easily clear like 1.5 million, but I think it could be closer to 2 million when it's all said and done. Nolan says, have a feeling they might hit 1.5 million, like 1.5 million. I think that's a lock. I genuinely think that this is easily going to hit that. Trevor says, I'm happy a good amount of people backing it are buying the game as well as the figures. Yep. I think I'm leaning more towards the game than the figures, to be perfectly honest. I have so many Mythic Legions figures that they can take the place of these figures. Larry's Geeky World says, I went all in plus a few extra figures in the unpainted minis. Gatey's Toy says, golly, I hope I kickstart the cost only. He said, no one who pays rent and groceries. That's exactly it. Like, that's your minimum, right? You're not doing it if you don't get paid that. The goal is that you get way more than that, because it just makes life easier. By life, I mean the job of putting this together and sort of working through, the production schedule and getting all the pieces going and all that kind of stuff. So, John from the Collecting Brothers says, it was fun watching the dollar pledge amount keep on climbing. Yes. It was like ticking. If you've ever seen like a power meter, when people are like running their power, it was like that. It has slowed down now. It's not constantly moving like it was in the first 24 hours. So, Mr. Ryan Clark says, I haven't committed to anything yet, but I dig the Boar Warrior, if you will. Yeah, well, I mean, they did the first time around. They didn't strictly call it Warrior in this one, I don't think. But now I can't even remember. And we'll take a look at the offering in a sec here. I'm just going to sort of skim through a couple more of these comments. Red 5 says, I bought my first Mythic Legion figure last summer. I want to buy more, but the prices in Canadian are crazy. That last sea wave with the walrus guy is 100. I feel priced out. This Kickstarter looks great. I think if you like these figures, Red 5, eCollectibles will have these figures available outside of the Kickstarter. He hasn't confirmed the price yet, but my suspicion is that these will be less expensive if you're just looking at the base figures. The $30 figure here, I think Four Horsemen have said will be $35, MSRP. So I would say expect that these to be somewhere in the range of about 50 Canadian dollars through eCollectibles. Don't quote me on that, because I don't work for eCollectibles. I just chat with Mike often. But I think 50 to 55. So that might be a good chance to sort of pick up a couple more figures. No word on whether he's going to have the the role-playing game stuff, like the beginner box and the core rule book. He couldn't confirm if he was going to get those. He did confirm that he was going to get the figures, which is why, back to my point of I'm sort of backing the game stuff but not the figures. That's why, because shipping wise and all that kind of stuff, it really doesn't make much sense for me to pay shipping to the Four Horsemen to Canada on these figures. Even if I have to pay a little bit more per figure, my guess is it will be less for me to just order them from eCollectibles, but I may be proven wrong. I don't know. We'll see. Nolan says, yeah, the Warrior guy looks great. Miss Ryan Clark says, I have to be strategic with Four Horsemen purchases. Finding a Canadian retailer helps. Yes, e-collectibles is the spot, in my opinion. That's where I get mine from, always, and I always will. JMax77 says, I think they should put all the backers as on the back of the yacht as the Four Horsemen ride off into the sunset. Oh, put the names. Put the backers' names on the back of the yacht. Yeah. The always relevant procrastinator push for crowd funds. Yeah, it really, if somebody could crack the code of how to get all the people that wait till the last minute to back at the beginning, it would be a game changer, because the reality is, like, people that are sitting on the fence waiting for the stretch goals and for the unlocks, if they just put the money in as though those things were unlocked, they would be unlocked and then they would get those things. It's just a really weird psychology to think like, well, I'll just wait and see what happens in this thing where what I do affects the outcome. It, like, that's where there's a weird disconnect. Like, you putting your money in makes the things available. So if you don't put your money in, the things aren't available. So you're waiting to see what happens is just a really counterintuitive way of sort of approaching a crowdfunding project. But I don't know. Miss Ryan Clark or Red 5 was asking, so I must be behind on the comments. I think I'm behind enough on the comments that hopefully I answered that question. E-collectibles would be the spot. Peter Klein says, I like the wizard from the reveal, so I got her, 3 of the skeletons, and the boar viper. Oh, and the head pack. I personally like all of them. The wizard slash, or the paladin slash cleric, I have the SDCC one, and so I don't know that I necessarily need that one. The dwarf I like, but the add-on pack I might skip. The elf, I love elves, so the elf thief, and then the ranger tabaxi, or jagualian in this case, is I mean, it's a no-brainer for me, right? I don't think anybody's surprised by that. And then the wizard and that pack are both awesome. So yeah, I'm pretty much all in for the heroes. Skeletons, I don't do skeletons. So this army builder type one, I'm okay without. It's a very nice looking orc, very nice looking boar. Again, he's a creature, so I'm in. So yeah, we'll see what I end up picking up. But like I said, I'll probably do the figures through eCollectibles. Nolan says that's probably pretty close because the figures are 41 Canadian. Yeah, at $30, I think is what you're saying. Like in the Kickstarter, they're $30 US, and then you got to pay shipping. So they're like 41, but then you pay shipping, you pay your duties and tariffs and all that kind of stuff, depending on sort of how you do it. So in the end, you're probably, $50 a figure at the Kickstarter price. So I'm kind of holding out. I'm hoping that Mike can get pricing before the Kickstarter campaign ends, but also, I don't love the idea of not knowing how much shipping is going to cost or who's going to ship it. Because personally, for me, in the past, Four Horsemen's shipping has been very, very expensive. Not to mention, they often ship with FedEx as a default, and FedEx has a weird thing where they deliver it to you and then they send you an invoice for the, for the GST and taxes, and their handling fee is like $80. So, you got to break that down over how many units you order or whatever. Anyway. Solo Sinner, who I haven't seen much in a while, but good to have you, buddy. He says, Mike at eCollectibles, top shelf human. I collect so much more than I would because of them. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. Travis is here. What's going on, buddy? And Red 5 says, I hope so. Mike gives pretty good deals at toy shows. Check his website. The last appreciation wave seemed high, but I honestly don't know what normal Mythic Legion's prices are. Mythic Legion's prices kind of start for their sort of value priced figures are typically going to be 50-55 Canadian. And I think these might sort of fall into that category. So I suspect that you're looking at probably 50-55 per figure for the base characters for these Kickstarter characters. That's my guess. Like I said, don't quote me on that, but Christopher Bouchard says, I have to pass on this due to the Cryptoids, Toys, and Ashen Oath Kickstarters coming soon. Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And I'm not talking about either of those today, but I will be talking about them in the very near future with Cryptoids launching next Tuesday. That's one that I'm very, very excited about as well. Ashen Oath, I don't know. They look fantastic. I don't know that I need Ashen Oath in my life. Not because they're not great, but because it does that sort of fill a hole in my collection? When I look at my Mythic Legion shelf, the answer is probably not. 16 Shooter says early backer rewards are the way to do that, but then people get mad because they don't get paid for 2 weeks or whatever else. Hard to win. You see that one? Okay, that one. The Four Horsemen told you, not you, Trevor. I'm not specifically talking to you. I agree with you 100%. But my pushback on that is the Four Horsemen told people at Legion's Con this year, which was in November, but earlier than that. I think Legion's Con last year, I think Legion's Con 2024, they were talking about the role-playing game. In theory, if you're a logical human, you've had a year and a half to sort of anticipate this, and you've literally had several months that they've been saying that this is going to be going on in February through March and then ending in April. Anybody that says, oh, I need a paycheck or whatever for this, it's like you've had 50 paychecks since you knew these were coming. If you put away $5 from each paycheck over that amount of time, you would have had the money. I personally like early bird. I also personally like people that complain because they can't get things because they didn't proactively plan this stuff out. If you don't get it, you don't get it. That's it's nobody's fault but your own, I guess. I have very little sympathy for people that have that as their excuse for not backing, but not backing early. I mean, if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Don't get me wrong. Nobody needs this. Nobody needs any of this stuff. So I don't want people to confuse, my comments about people sort of saying, well, I need my, paycheck to clear before I can do this or whatever. Like I said, you had ample time to, to squirrel away a tiny amount of money over a long period of time. Waiting until the last day of the campaign to have the money isn't a Four Horsemen problem. That's a personal problem. So when people sort of cast, their negative opinion about like, oh, well, I couldn't do it, whatever. I'm done talking about that. Nolan says, I just feel bad if I back, then later need to back out at the last minute. That's totally fair. I mean, I get that. Like I said, I backed for a bit. I'm probably going to add more. I'm probably not going to wait till the last 2 or 3 days, but I am probably going to wait to sort of see if there's any news from E Collectibles as far as what he's going to have and what the pricing is going to be like. Because I'm thinking this through. I know I'm not going all in. Like I never had any intention of going sort of all in on this, because I know that I can't. I got too much other stuff going on. So yeah. I'm going to scan through some of these comments. I'm not going to pull them all up. Justin Mohan says this Kickstarter has stalled. No, it hasn't. This is the way every single Kickstarter ever has gone. This is 100% normal. You could literally like go back and look at every Kickstarter, every HasLab, all those things. You see the first 3 days, you know, the first 48 hours, and then sort of into the third day, you see a big spike, and then you see it kind of taper off. And it'll have a little bit of growth every day, but it will be seemingly insignificant. And then in the last 3 days, you'll see the third day before the end, it'll start turning up, and then the last 2 days it'll spike. That's how every Kickstarter works. You know, has it stalled? Sure. You know, the optics of that, you know, you can say that, but it's exactly how every Kickstarter always works. So when people have those moments, they're like, oh, it's not going to hit, you know, whatever. Yes, it is. It 100% is going to have a big spike at the end, and they'll probably clear all their stretch goals. So, what's going on, buddy? Good to have you, Chewy. Chubulu one. Good evening to you too. It's weird to see that and not speaking moistly, but good to have you. No Chewing says this live is helpful. I haven't had a chance to look at the campaign. Okay, let's look at the campaign then. Let me get caught up here on the comments. Okay, good. I was just about there. Josh Brown says, I doubt that many retailers have figured out what all they are going to carry yet. Yeah, that's again, I wish you know, there was more of a strategy there. But I totally understand. Four Horsemen probably want to get their money first. They'd rather have you buy it direct from them. They make more money that way than if you buy it from a retailer. So I totally understand that it sort of takes a little bit longer. And as I said, if I was in the US, I would be backing the Kickstarter direct, giving them all my money. You know, because the profit margin is significantly more if you back the Kickstarter versus if you buy it from a retailer. But objectively, from my perspective, you know, it may be cheaper for me to go through a retailer. So that's where I'm at. So, speaking Whiteley said I would go all in, but I have nobody to play with, so just figures for me. That is totally fair. But as Trevor says, it's easy to play online with people through Zoom. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can play it. I know lots of people are already kind of planning their, you know, their parties. You know, once this thing is in hand, I know a lot of people that are already. I don't know anybody, you know, locally that I would play with, but I've already got sort of 2 games, 2 campaigns, two parties that I hope to be a part of once they materialize. So Nolan says, what's the core rule book worth? All right, let's get into this thing. I'm going to do a very, very quick overview of this, and if people have questions, feel free to fire them in the comments and I will answer them as well as I can. Keep in mind, I don't work for Four Horsemen. I don't know with any certainty that I will have any answers. So let's very quickly take a look. I mean, that's the offering right there. Like that's, you know, what you can get. You've got the core rule book, you've got the beginner box, you've got what is it, 4 base figures, 4 sets to augment those 4 figures. Then you've got 2 villains. You have an additional figure that's been unlocked. You've got miniatures. You can get them either painted or unpainted. You've got acrylic standees, so you can go sort of the less expensive route and just get the standees instead of the fully sculpted miniatures. That's it in a nutshell. That's what you get. Not a crazy amount of stuff. So there's not a ton of stuff that you really have to like figure out different combos for. It's kind of like, you know, you get what you need and you get what you want. You know, just a quick look at what a Mythic Legions figure looks like when you pull it all apart. They're very easy to pull apart. So that's the other thing with these. You know, if you've got a character that you want to build, you can build it with sort of any Mythic Legions figure that you have already. You can add these ones if you want to just sort of drop them right in. or use these as sort of a base to create another character or another figure. If you don't want to play the game, you certainly don't need to build these out in any particular sort of way. I'm kind of looking at these as the base figures, but I'm also thinking like I think I want some unpainted minis so that I can do sort of custom characters, and then paint the minis to kind of match those. But we'll see. Um, yeah, the permutations of like what you could order are infinite, and everybody's going to have different stuff that they want to get. So let's just sort of look at the items, and then everybody can go from there. The beginner box, I think, is the place to start. I think if you're thinking about getting into the game and you want to just get sort of the bare minimum, the beginner box will give you everything that you need to run the game very, very successfully. You have the core, you have the beginner's rule book, which is sort of an abridged version of the full rule book. You have a campaign, meaning you have the framework for playing, the game. You have maps, you have dice, you have the acrylic standees, and it all comes in a convenient box, like a board game does effectively. And if you've never played a tabletop role-playing game, the hardest thing for people to understand is what it is and what it isn't. It's not like a board game. You're effectively using the tools that come in this beginner's box to communally create and tell a story. It is as immersive as you want it to be. A lot of people are a little bit shy to sort of get into it because they think that they're gonna have to like act like a character or something like that. You absolutely don't. How involved you get is entirely up to you, but I can tell you, just being there and just playing is super, super fun, and anybody can get the hang of this. The other thing that I've heard too is people are like, well, I'm just not creative enough, or I'm not just, I don't think like that. You don't have to. Um, if you're going to be the game master or the dungeon master, you might need an element of that. But even still, with the campaign books, it's not that hard to be not creative at all and still do a really good job of this and really have a great time playing a role playing game. I would strongly recommend it to any toy collector. I mean, it's you're playing with your toys. That's the point, right? But anyway, that's the beginner box. Um, you can get the beginner box with a bonus figure. If you're aware of that figure, I'm not going to explain it. If you're not aware of that figure, it's a figure that's only going to be available in this campaign. More on that in a million other videos across YouTube. Feel free to go check those videos out. I'm not going to talk about that because it would take way too long. It's not really worth it. I'm just quickly going over these. The core rule book is sort of the unabridged. This is all the rules. This is all the mechanics of how the game works. I think if you're sort of intending to go any deeper than playing this, a handful of times, the core rule book is a must. This is the same as like the Dungeon Master's guide in Dungeons and Dragons. But the fact that there's only one core rule book, I think you're probably going to get your monsters in there. So this is effectively, if I'm not mistaken, and Trevor, I think you maybe this is somewhere where you can sort of add or correct me. Normally in Dungeons and Dragons, you need the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Monster Manual, and the Player's Handbook. Those are sort of the three books that you need. People can argue that you could just get the Player's Handbook and you'd be okay. I strongly disagree with that, but the core rulebook at $40 is an absolute steal. Like if this is everything you need, and this is sort of all the rules, at least as far as they exist now, at $40, buy the beginner's book, buy this, you're golden. You'll be able to play this for years probably without needing anything else. It's going to give you all the descriptions of heroes. It's going to give you all the descriptions of enemies. It's going to give you all the descriptions of, like I said, the mechanics. How does combat work? How does exploring work, how does leveling up work, all that kind of stuff is going to be in that core rule book. You're literally not going to need anything more. All your questions are going to be asked or answered in that core rule book. So let's see. Trevor says, unabashed plug. I have Cameron Smith, who wrote the rule book, on Legion's Lounge tomorrow night. We'll talk about getting started. So if you want to know about how to play and sort of like what you need, tune into that, because Cameron Smith is the guy. He's the guy that wrote this. So tune into Trevor's channel tomorrow for that. I won't go any deeper on that. It's what I've said to people who have never played a tabletop role-playing game before, who are a little bit apprehensive about getting into it. A lot of times people are like, well, it seems really thick, it seems really dense, it seems like, I don't know the rules, so I don't want to be out of place because I don't know the rules. Understand that there are no rules. That's the hardest thing to sort of explain in a clear way. But a tabletop role-playing game, like I said, is you and the people that you're playing with coming up with this story. There are rules, but if everybody agrees that they want to do something that breaks the rules, there's literally no reason that you can't. The whole point is to have fun. The whole point is to enjoy it. And if you go into it like that, I genuinely believe that it's virtually impossible to not enjoy your time playing a tabletop role-playing game. But that's just my opinion. Your mileage may vary. Can I use my Warhammer minis? I suppose so. I don't see why not. Like I said, depending on the party that you're playing with, you could even have your characters be Warhammer characters. You'd have to sort of figure out and agree upon, how that character is going to work. But, my previous comment, if there's no rules, you can do whatever you want. That's the way this works. John says, I have never played a tabletop role-playing game, but I've set a goal for myself to learn how to be a good DM by year's end. You'll be fine. You'll be fine, honestly. I had never done it until recently. I thought I would be terrible at it. I am. But what I quickly realized was I only do so much as the game master or as the dungeon master. It has a lot more to do with the other players. Would the rule book double as an art book? I think kind of. I'll be totally honest. I was thinking about that yesterday. I was thinking to myself, as somebody that has all these Mythic Legions figures, this now actually sort of gives me a better idea of the headcanon for like how strong are certain races, certain character types, all that kind of stuff. I'm genuinely like excited, even if I never play the game, even if I just get the core rulebook and I can kind of like reference like, okay, well, this goblin would need 2 other goblins to like fight this knight or something like that. And if they're going to fight a Rakagor, they're going to need 10 goblins. Like, so just understanding kind of the power levels of all the different characters, even if you never play the game, like I said, it just sort of gives you a better idea of headcanon for things that aren't directly related to the game. But that's, again, I just like to play with my toys, and now I'll be able to like play with my toys better. It's just a fun adventure with people. That's exactly it. The rule book looks pretty thick. Dude, I have a shelf full of Dungeons and Dragons books. You want to talk about like thickness to the lore and the mechanics and the rules? I've got proof that this is definitely on the easier end of the spectrum of things you could get into. of the campaign, in my opinion, Warrior is the figure to get. It's a great looking figure. Let's look at the figures. So base player figures, $30 a figure. You get a sort of slimmed down, leaner version of a figure release. They don't come with a ton of accessories, but at that price point, I think they're bang on. I think I have a toolbox full of swords and axes and shields and pauldrons and things that are just sort of like extra from other characters. This is a great way. I think if you're, if you don't want to get into the game, you just want to get into Mythic Legions, I think these figures at $30 are a fantastic way to do that. You can get a couple enemies as well. Orcs aren't as common as you'd think in Mythic Legions. I'm excited to get sort of this bear bodied orc. I think this is going to be really a practical addition to my shelf. I love orcs. I love goblins. So I'm not getting any skeletons personally, but orcs, I'm probably going to pick up a couple. I got lots of orc heads to sort of have an alternate one. I like the one that's on there as well, but I have some orc builders to sort of use those parts for. The Kickstarter exclusive dice set. If you're only going to get one thing in the Kickstarter, get this. This is the only thing that they've listed as the Kickstarter exclusive. And if you start playing tabletop role-playing games, you'll probably end up with a whole bunch of dice. And at $25 for this set, it's a pretty good price. It's a pretty good entry into the Kickstarter. Like I said, it's a Kickstarter exclusive. So, when these come out, people are like, man, these are the coolest dice I've ever had. You're going to be kicking yourself for not ordering them during the Kickstarter. Everything else, to the best of my knowledge, will be available after the campaign, with maybe the exception of the gold paladin cleric figure, which I think will come up on soon. But as I said, the dice is the sort of only Kickstarter exclusive item. You can't get the gold paladin unless you back something in the Kickstarter. So technically, this is actually the cheapest way to get just that figure. You order this, plus you add that paladin, $85. You're good to go. But you should get the game anyway. The combo set of core figures. So you get all 6 of the base figures at $179. It's only $1 less than if you just sort of pick and choose which ones you get and got 6. But there you go. It's there. This to me was a weird reward tier offering, and if you order this, I don't know, feels like a weird. If you just want one of each, one and done, click this, away you go. But it feels like a weird offering. Again, if you're gonna order the 6 figures at $179, do yourself a favor, and for $20 more, just get the set that comes with a beginner's box. Even if you get this and you don't want that set, you can flip through it and be like, cool, not for me, and sell it for $30. And you're coming out of this better off than if you just get this. This is a no-brainer. If you want sort of base offering at $199, to me, this is the reward package, plus the dice. Combo set of the full party. If you just want figures, you're looking at $399. Again, the savings over if you just sort of pick and choose, it's not that much. I have it written down somewhere because I didn't want to forget. Full party at $399 is like $6 off of if you pick and choose it yourself. So again, I don't think they're really pushing people towards this one. But again, if you want to get sort of the more value add at $419, add $20, you get that, you get the extra stuff. That's probably the better way to go there. The all-in set at $620, you get everything. So you get all the figures, you get the core rule book plus the beginner's box, you get the dice, you get all the standees, you get you get the painted minis, you get the Game Master screen, you get the figure stands, you get the coins, which we haven't even talked about because they're an add-on. So you get tons of stuff in here. And if you want kind of one of everything that they're doing, you can go that route. If you want one of everything plus that bonus figure at $680, so you add another $60 on top, and there you go. Once I get to the end of the rewards, I will sort of give my 2 cents on some of the pricing, because I do have an opinion on it that I might not be, I don't know. If you just want game stuff, now this is where I might, this might be what I order in the end. If I can get the figures from eCollectibles and he's not doing this stuff. This set, you know, you get the core rulebook, you get the Game Master screen, you get the dice, you get the beginner box set, you get the standees. You don't get the miniatures, so you'd have to add the miniatures on if you want them, which I would do. So here's the add-on items, the character packs, $15 per character pack. So you know, the base characters can get swapped up for these characters by way of these character packs. And at $15, like, just what you get in here is like pretty good value as well. There's a head pack set for $15. There's an evil weapons pack set for $15 and a heroic weapons pack set for $15. All, again, I think are pretty good value. I mean, you're getting 5 painted heads for $15. Like, that's bonkers, right? Like, that's $3, $3 a painted head. Custom heads, you know, if you go to Legion's Con, you're looking at $30 minimum per. So again, this is kind of a no-brainer if you want those extra parts and stuff. The acrylic standees, so these are just sort of a cutout. Think of like you know, when you get those cardboard standees of people, and you used to get them in like movie theaters, stuff like that. You can get them for like athletes and stuff too, I think, or you could. Maybe you can't anymore. But these are just you know, the miniature size versions of those. If you want to upgrade a little bit, you want a little bit more dynamic, you know, game token, you can get the Mythic minis. They're offered either as painted figures or as unpainted figures. So in the painted version, for $20 per set, you get 4 painted miniatures for $20, which again is a very, very good deal. If you don't believe me, you know, Google search painted miniatures. $20 for 4 is a very good deal. Each set comes with 4. There's 2 pictured, and then not pictured, there's 2 for each. For the skeleton, for the baddies, you actually get 2 skeletons and 2 orcs to get your 4. The same thing is offered in unpainted at $5 a set, which they're practically giving them away. I plan to buy some of these to actually practice painting, because at that price, they're like cheaper than just about anything else. Figure stands, if you want to grab some of those. The Game Master screen, which you know, you can use a piece of cardboard. You know, you don't need a Game Master screen, but they're cool. You get cool art on the back. It's got pockets and a dry erase thing, so you know, if you're the Game Master, this is an invaluable tool for sure. The coins, I absolutely love. I love stuff like this. 85 coins for $25. Again, that's ridiculous. That pricing is insane. I find it hard to believe that they could be making money on these coins. I don't think they are. Then we got the Heroic Paladin Cleric exclusive figure at $60. So this is available as an add-on. This was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive figure, and then it was meant to be quite limited in the Kickstarter, but there was enough of an uproar that the Four Horsemen decided to just sort of offer it as an add-on, so anybody can get it. Like I said, if you just want that figure, the cheapest way to do that is to get the dice at $25 and then add this as an add-on. So $85, you'd get this and that Kickstarter exclusive dice. So there you go. That's the rewards. Peter Kleins, I have absolutely no use for the coins, but they're really tempting just because they're so cool. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're not, you know, they're not legal tender. They're just a trinket, but I love them. I love stuff like this. Space and money are issues, and I still end up buying stuff like this for myself because it's just cool. $20 for the painted minis is a steal if you have no paint. You're absolutely right, because if you wanted to paint those minis, you'd need at least, you know, a little, like one of the little paint sets that you can buy, the sort of, you know, entry level paint sets where you get sort of 6 or 8 or 10 paints and a little paintbrush, and you'd be looking at least $20, $30. So buying the paint, but I mean, buying the painted ones, they're going to be painted really nice. You don't have to paint them. You can just play them right away, right out of the box, and then paint the other ones on your own time. Like I said, I'm probably going to buy the painted ones and 2 sets of the unpainted ones. Josh Brown Toy says you may be able to do the backer kit without a reward for $1 and then add the Cleric Paladin as an add-on. I don't know. Sometimes they don't allow that, but you might be able to. You might be able to. So you might be able to go like $61, but I didn't try it. I have that figure already. I don't need a second one. Anybody want to buy a book? That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think it's going to be an easy thing to move, you know, for $30 or $40. Once this is all said and done. Josh Brown says exclusive means I want it. That's fair. I already got one, so I didn't even get to the okay, never mind. There's more. I didn't even get to the Warrior. I just realized that I haven't even seen that. Stretch goals. So the first stretch goal unlocked at 200. I'm not going to go into these in much depth. If you want more information about this, check out Trevor's show tomorrow. If you want more information about this, check out the 4 Horsemen have done videos about this. And if you want to go even further down that rabbit hole, I'm sure YouTube will be more than accommodating and give you 30 different options of videos that you can see people spend literally hours going in depth into sort of all this stuff. But you can see, as I said, they have stretch goals all the way to 1,000,003, which I will be shocked if they don't hit all their stretch goals. They also have add-on unlocks. So they've got they've set this up in an interesting way. So they've got stretch goals that kind of add value to the offering. You know, where they sort of add stuff to the to sort of like to what you're already ordering and stuff like that. And then they have add-on unlocks as well. So these are things that you can, as they sort of hit goals, there will be more stuff that you can buy. So the add-on unlocks require you to spend more, whereas the stretch goals, I believe in almost every case, is just stuff getting added to what's already on offer, you know, in the campaign as rewards and stuff like that. But I'm not going to go through all those. Like I said, if you're interested, you know, you can go and do that yourself or check out other people's videos. The add-on unlocks are probably more interesting to a lot of people anyway. This is where we get sort of new figures. So at 500,000, they unlock the Warrior, which also has an alternate vampire head. At 750,000, they'll unlock another set of dice, a Necronominus faction set. At $1 million, there's another figure. At 1.5 million, there's another figure. And I think they'll crush all of these. I think I would be shocked if they didn't do 1.5 million. That's my personal opinion. These dice are included with the figures. So with the core 6 figures, you can put together another set of dice. Necronominus set of dice, like I said, will unlock at 750,000. They don't show the Warrior on here. They haven't updated this. They could add it in here, but they don't have it on here. Can I see it here? Let's see. Not that you need to see it, but there's another figure that you can get. I'm scanning through the add-on items here. There he is. Can I see more? Can I see the picture? Will that give me no, that's no use. Anyway, there's another figure. You can do your own research and find it. I'm not going to go over it. For the sake of time, that's kind of just about all I've got. Let's just put this right up here. Let's just get rid of that right there. There you go. Okay. I said I had an opinion on some of the numbers. My personal opinion, they should have had an early stretch goal. There should have been an early bird stretch goal. That's I genuinely think that they would have had people that went, with but then again, they crushed it. So what do I know? And they've crushed it. So, my opinion is somewhat moot. But if you look at the pricing, here's what I will say, and this is sort of this is my advice to people who were like, oh, what should I do? What should I order? How should I sort of pick my things? My personal opinion, decide what you want of all the items that are there, and don't worry about bundles. If there's a bundle that you like, get it, by all means. But pricing wise, there's not a huge incentive for the bundles. There's not a huge incentive to buy more. There's not like, the all-in price isn't dramatically different than if you buy one figure. I know because I did the math. I worked it all out. If you buy the full all-in, like if you buy one of everything, that all-in at like $620, your savings are $50 over if you buy everything piecemeal. It's not nothing, but to me, it's not as big of a draw to me, for that price point. But that's just my opinion. My opinion, as I said, is figure out what you want, put it in there, pick the reward tier that you want, and just do add-ons for the things that you want. If you want everything, go all in, save yourself that $50. But I wouldn't be too stressed out about, maximizing your reward here, because they haven't really structured it that way. There's there's ways to sort of save a few bucks here and there, and a few bucks here and there counts. It adds up. Don't get me wrong. But my opinion, don't stress about what you want versus what's offered. Figure out what you want and add it in there. I think the pricing for each individual item is bang on. I think it's great. So you're not, like I said, you don't get too stressed about how you put together your pledge. Pledge for what you want, and then sit back and relax, and wait for your cool stuff. Trev said the Game Master screen also has quick rule references. Yes. I use mine, my Dungeon Master screen when I do when I'm dungeon mastering for Dungeons and Dragons, and it has sort of quick reference rules, and it's pretty handy. The pockets is nice too, because I always have too much stuff in front of me on the table. It'd be nice to have a couple things tucked away. Mr. Ryan Clark says it was funny on Wednesday when Jeremy Gerard revealed the $750,000 reward by accident. I didn't see that, but I know that did happen. Add-on unlocks are smart for driving growth of the campaign. It gets the people who already believe in the project to invest more. Absolutely. Everybody, every Kickstarter typically has them, but every Kickstarter should have them. Nolan says, I'm kind of just wanting what I need to be a player. I honestly, if you just want to play, like, you kind of probably don't need anything. That's the reality. I'll be totally honest. If Nolan, if you're thinking something along the lines of like, you want to play with the Clubhouse crew with Oz and stuff like that, you don't technically need anything. You need a set of dice, which you can get online dice. You don't even need a set of dice. You're sitting in front of a computer right now. You literally have everything you need right now in front of you, because you can do all of it on a computer. You can have virtual dice. You can make notes on your computer. If you want to go old school, you want to go analog, what you'll need is a set of dice. You'll need a piece of paper, and you'll need a pencil or pen if you want. That's literally all you need to play a tabletop role play game. All the rest of it is bonus stuff. Sometimes it makes it easier. Sometimes it makes it more complicated. But yeah, it's That's it. That's all. That's all you need. I'll do this. I don't like this. I'm gonna go back to this one. You literally don't need anything if you want to be a player. If you're gonna play in person with other people, you might want a figure and a miniature of your character. But you again, those are cool, but again, you can use whatever you want. You could use a battery and an action figure that you already have. You could have a battery as your. I'm looking at a battery and action figures. If you didn't buy any figures, you could still play the game with somebody that had the beginner set and the core rule book. You know, your character, you know, as long as you can use your imagination, you could have a barbarian character and you can have a battery for your miniature that sort of stands in place where the miniatures are. And then when you move to like the phase where you need an action figure, just pick any action figure. Atticus Doom is on my desk, so that's why I picked him up. But they're stand-ins. You could do whatever you want. There's no rules. That's what I'm saying. That's why tabletop role-playing games are so awesome, is you can flex your sort of creative muscles as much or as little as you want to. JMax77, good point. You need pizza and snacks and soda pop as a player. There you go. You could come up with a story about a battery character. You could. This is it. No gods, no rules. You do what you want. We're all here, you know, doing this thing. All right, guys, that's all I've got. I would strongly recommend you check out the campaign if you haven't already. If you're interested in, I will say this too. If you've ever been interested in Dungeons and Dragons, but you haven't really known how to get into it, this might be an easier way. This is certainly cheaper than getting into Dungeons and Dragons, and you're getting in before anybody's played it. So, you know, if you're apprehensive about Dungeons and Dragons because it's been going on for years and years and you don't want to feel like you're behind or whatever, jump in on this. Jump in on this now. You know, the beginner box at $45. You could be a game master. You know, you could be playing this game before anybody else, and 10 years from now, you could tell people like, I got in when they started, and you could be one of the cool kids. So that's my sales pitch. Go back to Kickstarter, or don't if you don't want to. It's again with everything that I say. If you want it, buy it. If you don't, that's cool, man. You do you. If you're hanging out and you're not buying toys or tabletop role-playing games and you just like hanging out and talking about toys, that's great. I'm all for that. Everybody can do what they want. That's back to Peter's comment. No gods, no rules. Do what you want. All right, guys. I've gone a little over. I think Brick something is probably doing the news right now. Actually, let me look. Let me see who's on the show today. News with Ant-Man Customs. Artman Customs. Sorry, Nico. That is going on right now. So quickly get your drink. Quickly get your bathroom break in and jump over to Brick Something's channel and check out what he is talking about. I bet he'll be talking about this Kickstarter at least a little bit. But I don't know with any certainty. Anyways, guys, it has been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you for joining me. You know, I'm always happy to hang out and talk toys with you guys. I should be back next week. I don't foresee there being a reason that I don't have a video next week, but yeah. Either way, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Well, that's a country song.
Living and loving and driving fast cars, whether I'm here or I'm on Mars. I'm gonna die young, baby, that I know. I'll leave a beautiful memory when I go. Well, I woke up this morning feeling pretty damn tired. I was up all night at a moonlight fire. There was beer, whiskey, beautiful girls, but you know can't afford no diamonds and pearls. So I told them I was famous for singing this song. I thought for a while I'd strung them along. One said, fellas, got a pretty good game. Tomorrow I won't even remember his name. Well, living in and driving fast cars. Whether I'm here or I'm on Mars, I'm gonna die young, baby, that I know. But I'll leave a beautiful memory when I go. I'll play that just like your daddy taught you. Now that sounds sweet. Guitar picker. So I went to the fridge, grabbed myself a beer. I jumped in the car that I wanted to steer. I told them guys I'll be back in the gym, but I accidentally drove my car off a cliff. So now I'm dead, but the song remains. Even though I scattered all of my brains on the inside of my black T-bird. I hope y'all remember these beautiful words. Well, living and loving and driving fast cars. Whether I'm here or I'm on Mars, I'm gonna die young, baby, that I know. But I'll leave a beautiful memory when I go.